You're an addict too. I know how that lands, but stay with me because I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to include you because I'm actually including myself in this. We've spent 2 episodes talking about how attention is engineered, how trigger words activate you before you have any idea what has happened. We've looked at how entire political movements are manufactured and performed and then just retired on a schedule. But through all of that, the question underneath has been the same. Why does it work? Why is it that smart, skeptical people who can see through the performance still get pulled into the machine? This episode is the answer. And it starts with you admitting something that nobody wants to admit. You're an addict. And so am I. So is everyone that you know. You know, as a society, we've built this incredibly narrow definition of addiction. We seem to reserve the word only for people whose lives fall apart in visible, dramatic ways. The ones that we've collectively deemed are broken or that we can all think down upon. And that framing isn't an accident. It's a feature of the system. If you think about it, if addiction only means that the guy on the park bench or the woman who lost custody of her kids, then the rest of us get to walk around believing that we're just fine and that we're in control. And if you believe that you're in control, you never examine what's actually controlling you. Every single one of us is an addict. Every one of us. The substance of the behavior might vary, but the mechanism is the same. People are addicted to love, or more accurately, the feeling of being wanted. People are addicted to hate, and I guess that righteous energy it gives them. They're addicted to pleasure and pain and social media and food and sex and being right. They're addicted to misery. At least misery is familiar, and that familiarity feels safe. But we think about addiction completely wrong. We think that addicts are addicted to the thing that they do, and we don't look any deeper than that. We don't actually get to the root cause of what's driving the addiction. We stop at the surface, and we never actually ask what's behind the behavior. And that's exactly what makes us vulnerable. Here's where this connects to everything we've been talking about on this show. The other day, I was mindlessly scrolling on X, and I saw a post about people not knowing or remembering what life was like before mobile phones. And it stopped me. It wasn't like it was a brilliant insight or anything, but it stopped me because it was true. We weren't constantly available. This was a time when we could be unreachable and nobody thought anything of it. There was no concept of being off the grid because there wasn't a grid to be on. You just existed and you went about your day. If somebody needed to reach you, they'd call the house and they'd leave a message. Or maybe they'd write you a letter. But communication generally was just more thoughtful and it was deliberate and purposeful. You picked up the phone because you had something to say, not because you were bored or anxious or you needed to feel like somebody was there. That old world, it didn't just disappear on its own. It was replaced on purpose. And it was replaced by people who understand addiction better than you understand yourself. That infinite scroll, that's not a design choice, that's a slot machine. It was engineered to eliminate the natural stopping point so you never have a moment to decide you're done. The pull to refresh gesture, that mimics the lever on the slot machine, literally. The notification sounds, the red badges, the someone liked your post. Every single one of those was designed by behavioral psychologists whose job it was to create compulsive usage patterns. They don't call it addiction in the board meeting, though. They call it engagement. But the neurochemistry is identical. The same dopamine loop that keeps someone reaching for a drink is what keeps you reaching for your phone. The same cycle of tension and relief and craving that defines substance addiction is what plays out every time you open an app because you felt a moment of boredom or discomfort that you just couldn't sit with. This isn't a metaphor. This is actually a business model. Now, Think about what we covered in episode 1. We did that trigger word exercise. I read a list of politically charged words, and I wanted you to notice what happened in your body. Your heart rate probably changed. You felt anger or vindication or anxiety, but you had a physical involuntary reaction to language. Now, it's that reaction that is the product. So every platform and media outlet and every algorithm is competing for one thing, and that's your emotional reactivity. And the most emotionally reactive person is the most profitable person. They click more, they share more, they argue more, and they come back for more. They're the perfect consumer because they can't stop consuming. Now, an addiction is a compulsive behavior that you continue despite negative consequences, and it's all driven by a need you often can't articulate. Think about how many people you know, yourself included, who check their phones knowing that it makes them anxious, who open social media knowing it makes them angry, who engage in arguments that won't change anyone's mind, but they just can't walk away from, who doom scroll at midnight knowing they'll feel terrible in the morning. That's addiction. That is the mechanism. And none of this is an accident. It is all designed. Now, the political theater we talked about in episode 2, the manufactured outrage, the loyalty tests, the pressure campaigns, all of that works because it plugs directly into your addictive wiring. It gives you a hit. Outrage, it's a hit. Feeling righteous, it's a hit. Belonging to the right side is a hit. And the system knows exactly how to deliver that hit and to keep you coming back again for more. Most often, unconsciously, we develop habits that become addictions because we're constantly chasing pleasure and avoiding pain just over and over. And the coping strategy that worked once becomes the thing that we reach for automatically, and then it becomes compulsive. So it's these habits, what we use to cope or fill ourselves, they become habit patterns of the mind. And then the mind continues to seek them out. It's the next drink. It's the next like. The next argument you can win. The next relationship that makes you feel alive. The next bite of something sweet that takes the edge off for a few minutes. You become a slave to the desires of your own mind. And the cruelest part is that most people don't even realize that it's happening. So whatever leads to an addiction could be caused by anything. Unhealed traumatic experiences, avoidance of life issues that are right in front of you, stress that's been building for so long that it just feels like who you are. But the root cause is almost never the thing you think it is. This is what makes the engineered attention system so effective. It doesn't create your pain. It exploits the pain that's already there. So you've got unresolved stuff. Everybody does. And instead of doing the difficult work and looking at it, there's an entire economy built to hand you an alternative. Here, be outraged about this instead. Here, pick a side in the fight. Here, scroll through this feed until the discomfort passes. The system offers you a hit of meaning, belonging, and identity. And all it costs you is your attention, your autonomy, and your ability to think clearly. I'm an addict. I'll say it plainly because I think more people need to hear someone say it without shame. I used to habitually drink alcohol. I wasn't, it's not the way that people picture when they hear that. I wasn't on a park bench. I didn't lose any jobs. But it's the way that millions of people do it. They do it regularly and they do it reflexively. It's a way to unwind and to loosen up, take the edge off something that you didn't want to feel. I've been addicted to what I thought was love, or that feeling you get when you're in love. Chasing that high without understanding that I was using another person's presence to fill something inside myself. I'm a sugar and dessert fiend. I mindlessly scroll social media. I'm looking outside at all the beautiful things and the people and reading hot take after hot take. I'm just looking for the next statement that's going to affirm my beliefs. Those are the things that I've done and do and avoid looking at myself, at the deeper and unresolved issues within. I do my best to look at myself in the mirror. I'm certainly my own greatest critic. Getting to the core of what makes you tick and understanding what's driving you to chase that pleasure or to avoid that pain, it is very serious business. It's what really is a life's work. So here's the pattern. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You carry unresolved pain and stress or discomfort. Everybody does. You develop coping mechanisms, habits that provide temporary relief. And those habits get exploited by systems that are designed to keep you in a loop. The scroll, the outrage cycle, the news, the political theater, all of that. And because the relief's temporary, you keep coming back. And because you keep coming back, you never actually address the thing that's driving you there in the first place. That is the cycle. That is the machine. And it works on every single one of us. The person who can't stop checking their phone at dinner isn't just being rude. They're medicating. The person who picks a fight every weekend isn't difficult. They're addicted to the intensity because calm feels like emptiness. The person who can't disengage from political arguments online isn't principled. They're just getting a dopamine hit from moral certainty. But we're all doing some version of this, all of us. I hope that we can all learn to become addicted to just being and just existing, not needing the validation or the noise, not needing the next hit of outrage or affirmation or distraction. I loved the days when there was no expectation of a response. You sent the message, you said what you needed to say, and you got on with it. To be like that today takes discipline and awareness. And it takes willingness to sit with yourself long enough to understand why the silence feels so threatening in the first place. Now, as promised, every episode I leave you with 3 things. So today's book is A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Frankl was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, and this book is about what he learned in the concentration camps about human nature. His core insight is that between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is your freedom to choose. And that's the whole ballgame. Everything we talked about today, the compulsive scrolling, the dopamine loops, the outrage cycles, the coping mechanisms we don't even recognize, all of it lives in that space between stimulus and response. The system profits when you have no space, when the trigger leads straight to the reaction with nothing in between. Frankl's book is about reclaiming that space. It's short, it's powerful, and it will change how you think about what you're actually in control of. Now, something to watch: The Social Dilemma on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I hope you'll watch it this week. If you have seen it, watch it again after this episode because I think it's going to hit differently now. Former engineers and designers from the biggest tech companies in the world sit down and explain how they built the addiction machine. They designed the infinite scroll and the notification systems and the algorithmic feeds. And then they tell you that they won't let their own kids use their products. I think that tells you everything. It's the business model laid bare. It's something to listen to. This week, I'm recommending my own song. It's called Addicts. I wrote it when I was going through it. I was working through some things, and I turned it into a song using Suno. It's personal, and it's raw, and I think you'll hear a lot of what we discussed today in it. All links are going to be in the show notes, okay? So, in episode 1, I asked you to notice what happens in your body when you hear a trigger word. In episode 2, I walked you through how political theater gets manufactured using my own experience. This episode was about the thing underneath both of those. It's the reason the engineering works. And it works because we're all addicts and nobody told us. It works because there's an entire economy built on making sure we never look at what's actually driving us. The first step to breaking any addiction is admitting you have one. Not the dramatic, visible kind, the quiet kind. The kind that looks like checking your phone 200 times a day. That looks like needing to have an opinion about everything. Or that looks like being unable to sit in a room alone with your own thoughts for 10 minutes. But you're a smart contrarian. You see through the political theater. You see through the manufactured outrage. Now turn that same clear-eyed skepticism inward. What are you addicted to? What are you avoiding? And who profits from making sure you never ask those questions? That's the real addiction worth breaking. Thanks for listening. I'm Ian Cain, and this is Take That to the Bank.